Hello, everybody. Welcome. As you enter into the webinar, feel free to introduce yourself in the chat where you're tuning in from. I'd also love to know what you're hoping to get out of today's webinar. So if you're willing to share maybe some tidbits that you're hoping to walk away with, I would really appreciate that. And as you introduce yourself in the chat, just make sure that you are selecting for hosts and panelists so everyone can see your response.
Actually choose everyone so everyone can
Oh,
see your
I'm
response.
sorry, everyone. I was looking at my own. Choose everyone so everyone can see your response. Thank you. I need more coffee, apparently. Hi, Leah from Cleveland. Hi, Lee from North Carolina. Thank you for being here. We're going to give it just one more minute for people to trickle in. And again, if you want to just introduce yourself, where you're tuning in from, anything you want to share, I'd love to know what you're hoping to get out of today's session. Career pathways. Thanks, Kimura. We'll definitely be talking about that today. Hi, Kendall. Good to see you here. Hi, Monica. All right. Well, we're going to go ahead and get started. And Leah said, I'm actually confused on where to start regarding approaching hospitals and opportunities. Yeah, we can definitely talk a little bit about that today as well. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. Welcome to New Year, New Career Pathways. I'm really excited about today's webinar because this is something I am super passionate about. I love talking about career pathways. I love helping students and alumni reach their professional goals. And we're going to really dive into some cool stuff today. Um, and Leah said Cleveland Clinic has a lot of integrative health research facilities and clinics. Oh, that's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, so just as we get started here on some general housekeeping, you'll notice that your line has been muted, and that's just because we do record this. You will receive an email. So feel free to take notes if you'd like, but you'll also get this via email after today's webinar is complete. And I really, I want this to be fun, interactive. So even though you can't come off mute, I'd love to see your comments and questions in the chat. Commenting to each other, I think is really fun too. So please feel free to not be shy and use that chat box. This presentation should be about a half an hour. We do a lot of full hour just in case there are a lot of questions or if, we want to explore something a little bit further. We're going to explore market trends today, career pathways, credentialing, and specific skills needed in this industry. So we'll go ahead and get started here. If I haven't met you yet, I hope to meet you in the future. My name is Felicia Royce. I'm the Director of Alumni and Career Services here with ACHS. I've been with ACHS off and on for about 10 years. I left for a short period to run my massage therapy practice. I'm an entrepreneur and I have almost 2 decades of experience in higher education. So this particular career pathway for me has been extremely rewarding. So that's who I am. And I would like to know from all of you, if you're willing to share, what are some of your professional goals? What are you hoping to do with your education here at ACHS? I like to see just, where people are at. Maybe you don't know exactly what you want to do, but feel free to put in the chat what you're hoping to do with your education. I would say that the most popular question that I get in my role is what can I do with my education in integrative health? And there's really a multifaceted, multi-layered answer to that question. So as we can see here, everyone's tuning in from all different places across the US. The market for integrative health is different in all different states and even cities within those states, right? So that question can be tricky because it depends on uh, multiple factors, right? Your experience, what you're coming into the industry with experience-wise, your goals, what you want to get out of your professional endeavors, Your degrees and certifications obviously play a big part, and that's why you're here, or why you've graduated with ACHS. Your credentials, so if you go on to get credentialed or licensed, that plays a part. And a really big one that I think is important to consider and important to really look into before you graduate is the market in where you live. So some markets are booming with integrative health opportunities, health coaching, working at integrative health clinics. There's just a lot of opportunity. Whereas if you're in a rural area or a small town, or maybe somewhere where integrative health is still being built, or people are starting to get on board, with holistic health, there may be limited opportunities. And that's where working with me, and working with career coaching can really help because sometimes you have to really think creatively. Sometimes you have to think about being an entrepreneur. Sometimes you have to think about going remote and maybe working remotely from a different state. So those are some things that I definitely do in my role, is help you figure out that market research. And then skill set and your current network. Network plays a really big part in opportunities. Job boards are amazing. They help, connect you to opportunities, but the reality is 80% of employment really comes from who you know and having an internal referral, for companies and for roles within companies. So I hope that helps kind of answer that question on a larger scale. But of course, if you have specific questions about your market where you live, we can set up a time to chat. So I'm going to look at the chat here and just kind of see what everyone's responses are so far. Lee said, gain personal knowledge, health, and explore what I could do for others. That's amazing. Loving herbs and detoxification, selling teas and salves. A lot of herbal medicine goals here, which is awesome. Aromatherapy, looking to continue and grow and develop in herbal medicine. Wow, I love all the herbal medicine here today. We are going to talk about herbal medicine. I'm curious if anyone else is looking into nutrition or other facets like fitness. Feel free to keep putting your goals there in the chat if you haven't already. Functional medicine coach, that's awesome. All right. So we're going to just kind of start with looking at career outlooks and looking at different trends and looking at different pathways within each of these particular modalities. So, health coaching, what I love about it is it's a really broad umbrella. And when you're looking for W-2 employment, the most opportunity really, in my opinion, lies within health coaching. It's a really broad category. A lot of times it's not necessarily focusing on one area, but multiple areas. So it's very integrative in nature. And it can focus on things that are outside of, just herbal medicine and nutrition. It's also looking at stress management, emotional health, kind of that holistic picture. It's also continuously growing. The industry is growing year over year. I've definitely been kind of watching this trend grow as we learn more about preventative healthcare and employers, want to provide more benefits to their employees. They're bringing on more health coaching, they're bringing on more opportunities through their EAP programs. So corporate wellness is definitely growing, and it's projected to continue to grow for the next 10 years, 4 to 7%. So I think that's a pretty awesome statistic. And I think this is if you're unsure of where you want to kind of start, this might be a really good place for you. So some different career pathways to think about. Uh, Obviously, independent health coaching. So setting up your own business. I'm doing one-on-one coaching or group coaching. Wellness coaching within, different startup companies. You can also look at corporations, corporate wellness, and even insurance companies will hire for the health coach role. Chronic disease coaching is definitely a very employable. A lot of pathways go that direction as well. Health educator, this kind of falls within that public health spectrum, and also the career, not career, I'm sorry, the care coordinator and health navigator roles. Sometimes you do have to get certified through your state, but it's usually pretty cost effective and not a very long or arduous process. So if you're interested in working in more of the public health, I would encourage you to look into health navigation and getting certified through your state. Sometimes an employer will even pay for that. Um, Hospitals and health clinics. We're going to talk more about credentialing. I would say, and to answer the question that kind of came up about hospitals earlier, hospitals and health clinics are definitely employing more health coaches. I would say that 99% of the time when I see those roles, and see companies and hospitals hiring for those roles, they are starting to really require the NBHWC credential, which is the National Board of Health and Wellness Coaching. The only program ACHS does offer currently is the Graduate Certificate in Wellness Coaching. That has been approved for that credentialing track. But if you go onto their website, you can see all of the programs that have been approved. So if you really want to work in the hospital space, I would highly encourage you to look into that and to get certified in health coaching. I think it would definitely help with employability and open up your options. Um, and then one thing I don't think that a lot of people think about, but can be really rewarding and really adjacent to holistic and integrative health is social work and human services. So working in the community and doing case management or working in the human services department, there's a lot of overlap with that health coaching piece. Um, so I'm going to look here before I move on and just see if there's any questions. It looks like what are the most valuable micro credentials for industry employers? That's a really great question. We have amazing micro credentials for all different modalities of integrative health. I would say all of them could be applicable, but it depends on what modality you're going to be working within. I will make sure, Gina, do you mind putting the link in there for the micro credentials just so that people can kind of see the different micro credentials that are being offered? If you're an entrepreneur, I would definitely encourage you to take the business entrepreneur micro credential because it is extremely helpful in really kind of setting up a business for yourself. But there's so many different options. I would say all of them, especially when it comes to continuing education and staying up to date. I think all of them could be applicable. Our care coordinators' roles in hospitals, they can be roles in hospitals. They can also be for independent small practices. They can be discharge coordinator roles in mental health facilities. So it's not just hospitals that I see those roles. Care coordinators can be in any real integrative health space. Holistic nurses, that would be if you had an RN. So that would be a different track. Certainly the integrative health programs that we offer here would lead to, the holistic nursing that maybe you would do within your role as a nurse, but nursing you do have to have an RN and you would have to go to nursing school. Has anyone gotten two masters from here or considered it? Yes, absolutely, Ashley. People have. Um, Actually, what's really cool about the way that our programs work is they are very stackable. So if you earn a master's, let's say in integrative health sciences, but you also want a master's in herbal medicine, a lot of those classes that you've taken already in the first master's will be applicable to the second. So then you're taking a lot less coursework. You're really focusing on herbal medicine, but it won't take you nearly as long as your first master's. And I think for some people that can be a really great thing for your resume. It just depends on what your goals are. Monica said I have a master's in psych, but definitely considered a master's level here too. Awesome. I also have a master's in psychology. It's a very applicable master's to have. Do they require clinical experience for those roles? Not necessarily for care coordinator, for health coaching, for a lot of these roles that I've spoke about. There are entry level options, so not necessarily. Can you expand on the social work human services career pathway? Yes. So, human services really encompasses working in all sorts of areas. So, I would say health navigation is definitely human services related. Working in housing, working with you know, uh, people with disabilities, child protective services. Um, they have an aging and disability kind of the bigger kind of human services. Um, I think it's a government role, usually has like child protective services, aging and disability services, and a lot of case management is needed in those roles. So you could definitely look at those government positions. It can be, social work. Now, clinical social work, you would need an MSW, right? So this wouldn't be a track for that. But a lot of those roles, like case management, I think some of the programs here would be applicable to those roles. I hope that answers your question, but if you have any like specific questions about that, definitely put them in the chat. Um, let's see. Anything else? How do we set up an appointment with me? Gina will put the link for my calendar in the chat there, and then I'll also be providing that at the very end. And I would love to talk with all of you individually if you have specific questions about your specific situation. Leah said, I'm looking into working as an Elix health coach. It's just that they require some background in TCM. Not sure about the validity of the company. Yeah, so that's definitely something we want to talk about offline. And that brings up a really good point that I'll just say. There is a lot of non-legitimate stuff out there. I think with the integration of AI and you know, just people wanting to get your information. Unfortunately, there's a lot that you really have to apply your critical thinking. Never give out your personal information. Do your work. If you see a position that's posted and it seems fishy, I would look for the company and then go to the careers page on that company website, make sure that's a real company, make sure it's a real position. So cross-referencing on LinkedIn or the employer's website is definitely recommended. There's also a lot of companies out there that will look a little too good to be true. It's like make $150,000 a year your first year as a health coach, or they want you to bring in the business, right? So it's like you're an entrepreneur and you're having to pay them, which isn't always a bad thing, but you just want to make sure you fully understand what these things mean before going into one of these situations. And then there's, multi-level marketing stuff you have to be aware of. So just really use your critical thinking, because unfortunately, there's a lot of stuff out there that's just not good. All right, let's see. How do we sort through legitimate schools, credentials, etc.? Best place to look. Well, like I said, really you have to be careful with the legitimacy of posted job listings. I see a lot of fake ones, and you can tell by some of the verbiage. You can tell if it's too good to be true, if it's saying you're making all this money your first year. Some red flags would be if you can't find the actual company or the employer using LinkedIn or doing a Google search. If they're using stock photos, that can be a red flag. If they ask you to do any type of interviewing over email, that's a red flag. As far as schools and credentials, I think you really just have to make sure that schools are accredited. Honestly, in my experience, sometimes just Googling and you'll see like Reddit posts that will come up that it's like this is a scam and other people are kind of reporting on it. So just Googling, looking at the credentialing, there are some credentialing bodies out there that say that you're going to get certified, which it's too big of a topic to really get into today here on this webinar, but certified is a very interesting word. Doesn't necessarily mean that you have a different scope of practice, and some people will use that certification when it doesn't really mean anything, right? So it's just really important to like really apply your critical thinking. Um, yeah. So let's see. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and move on here. Keep it going with the chat, and I'll definitely be checking in here in the next couple of minutes as well. So, in terms of nutrition pathways, I just love I love nutrition. I love that the CNS is an option now for our Masters of Holistic Nutrition students because this is a pathway that's really holistic, but can in some states lead to a license. Not every state. So it's really important to check your state regulations and to really understand what that means. But I think there's a lot of lobbying going on, and a lot of changes happening slowly but surely on the nutrition front. And I think we're going to see, trends heading in the right direction with integrating more of the certified nutrition specialist options. Right now, if you were to do a search, you're still going to come up with a lot of registered dietitian positions. Our school does not have a pathway for that. But I'm starting to see more nutrition consultant positions. I'm starting to see trends moving in that direction, wanting to kind of have a holistic viewpoint of health. So you can see here that it is obviously trending with the United States as well. It's definitely a growing field, a 6% increase. This is specific to CNS professionals. There is not enough data for non-licensed nutrition professionals. So just keep that in mind for employment growth that's projected through the Bureau of Labor and statistics there. So I did offer the link here so that you could see your own specific state. And then it's really important that you also look at your statutes. So this will give you a little blurb. And then if you click on your statutes, it gives you a lot more information. If you live in a state that has really strict regulations, I would also encourage you, if you're going to go into business for yourself, you really, should talk to a lawyer or somebody who knows the law inside and out, or just really understand your laws because nutrition is different in every state. Some pathways we talked about, certified nutrition specialists, those are for that pathway is for graduate students in the Master of Science in Holistic Nutrition program. If you have questions about that, I certainly can meet with you individually and talk with you about that pathway. We're going to also talk about it here at the end of this presentation. Nutrition consultant, nutrition coach, again, health and wellness coach kind of fits into that. One thing that I really love, and I've talked to a lot of students about, is the culinary arts. I've talked to so many creative students who are opening up pop-up smoothie shops and opening up even restaurants that are serving healthy foods and have that educational component, that do private chef, um, you know, deliver to your door, things like that, offering chef services at retreats. I mean, it's so cool, all the different things that you can kind of do within that umbrella of nutrition. School systems sometimes will hire for nutrition programs as well. And then, of course, health brands working for nutraceutical companies and that type of thing. Those are some pathways. And I'm curious if any of you have ever worked in the nutrition field, or if you plan to, if you have a pathway outside of these that you're interested in, I'd love to hear it. So let's see here. So yeah, the validity of looking for schools. I think it's really important to look for the accreditation and then to research that accreditation, to talk to the admissions department, to ask all of those really important questions, especially when it comes to things like nursing, where there's a license at the end. You want to make sure you fully understand and that it is a fully accredited program. Definitely don't want to get yourself into a bad situation there. Let's see. Okay. Any questions about nutrition or this pathway at all? Please, feel free to put that in the chat. And I'm going to move into herbal medicine professionals. It sounds like we have a ton of herbal medicine professionals here with us today, which is exciting. Herbal medicine is such a fun career pathway. I love talking to herbalists and herbal medicine professionals because Again, there's so many creative pathways that I've heard of. Everything from research to opening up a school, foraging. I'm trying to think of all of the things I've heard of. Obviously, health coaching, community health, partnering with other, professionals. There's just so many things you can do. The sky's kind of the limit. Again, you really have to understand your scope of practice. There's no licensing for herbal medicine professionals, so it's really important that you understand what you can and can't do. But it is a very growing field, not just with products, not just with, supplements, but also with consulting and integrating this into integrative health and being able to offer, complementary alternative options for people. So I don't see a lot of opportunities currently for like the hospital space. However, I am definitely hearing a lot about, smaller private practices hiring herbal medicine consultants to work with the patients there. So, integrative offices like acupuncture clinics, chiropractic offices, functional medicine clinics, those are all definitely institutions where you might be able to, utilize your skills and potentially work with those professionals. And again, if you want to talk about like your personal goals around that, we could talk about that as well. And it goes back to what I was saying earlier about where you live. If you're not in a place that has a lot of integrative health clinics, we'll definitely want to get creative and figure out some other ways for you to tap into working in a clinic space. Some other pathways to think about, supplement companies, nutraceutical companies, those tend to be more sales-driven roles, but I've heard some really great things. Also working in quality assurance. There are a lot of companies that are really large. If you go into any health food store and you just look at the supplement aisle, it's like there's just hundreds, right, of different supplement companies. So working in quality assurance, working in the natural products manufacturing side of things. That is always a great pathway. Obviously, building your own business, that's what a lot of community herbalists do. If you are interested in becoming a registered herbalist, there's a pathway for that. And we can definitely talk about how to start setting yourself up for that pathway. There are a lot of clinical hours that you would have to obtain for that pathway. So that's really more of a credentialing pathway for clinical herbalists, I would say. And again, it does not change your scope of practice. So it does not lead to a license. The only way to get a license is if you're, let's say, a licensed naturopath or a licensed acupuncturist. So it's important to just, say that. Apothecaries, retail shops, working at an herb shop or owning an herb shop, definitely heard of some wonderful apothecaries out there. Um, Farming, working with your hands, getting in the soil, working in agriculture, that is definitely a pathway. I just was talking to somebody the other day that is hoping to work on an herb farm and is going to be distilling on that herb farm. So that's definitely, depending on where you live, an option. The cannabis industry, that is a booming industry. And of course, you can work directly with the products. You can also work in the retail side of that. And of course, that also depends on where you live. And then research. We need a lot of research out there. That's not necessarily like a full-time career pathway, but can absolutely be an adjunct to your independent consulting and coaching, or if you want to get published in a magazine or article, in some sort of integrative health space, that is definitely something that I would recommend looking into if you like the research side, just because it does build your credibility, and who knows, maybe you would be able to actually teach one day as well. Again, that would be like, having a higher level, like master's degree or higher, more clinical. But you could definitely think about that pathway if you're looking to go long term. So let's see here. I don't think herbs is oversaturated. Interested in quality assurance and publication. Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. I don't think herbs is oversaturated. I think getting started, we've come a long way to reach the masses. Yeah, Ashley, I agree. Carrie Ann said, how do I stand out in a field of aromatherapy when the ordinary individual thinks YouTube is the place to learn? That undermines the clinical knowledge. Yeah, I hear you. I hear you on that. And there's a lot of misinformation out there as well. We'll talk about that. That's true. Food and nutrition. How do we get involved in research? Yeah, I mean, we did a whole webinar with Dr. Judith Thompson, the Dean of Herbal Medicine. We'll make sure that we put that in the chat as well, because I think you would get a lot out of watching or listening to that webinar. Research is definitely it's interesting to get your foot in the door. I would say you definitely want to get a higher level degree, and then you would want to kind of reverse engineer it. So where would you want to be researched? And if you are doing a dissertation or a capstone or thesis, some of that can actually, some of what you are putting in your dissertation or your capstone can be extracted and sent in for publication and research. But you would have to find where you particularly wanted to be published. So whether that's a specific journal, if that's a specific publication company, there's some research that you would have to do. And we can absolutely talk offline. We could literally talk for hours about research, but that's just a little tidbit to start with. And then the webinar would be really fascinating for you to watch as well. Um, Registered herbalist path. Um, Let's see. Are there any mentorship programs? Yes. So we do have a mentorship program here. It's not necessarily really designed to get a position. It's more designed to support you. It's a peer-to-peer. So the mentors here are all ACHS graduates. Most of them run their own businesses. And so mentorship is really around helping you kind of connect the dots when you're, graduating. How do you start taking all of the knowledge that you have and applying it to either an entrepreneurial path or even a career path outside of entrepreneurship? But it's not necessarily like you might practice some of your skills, but it's not necessarily to like get your foot in the door, so to speak. And we can definitely talk more about that if you want to schedule a time to talk. Can you speak to my employment support question? Monica, I might have missed that. I'm sorry. I'll go back here. Mm, does the doctoral program prepare you more for educational roles than a formulation botany opportunities? Yes, I would say, you know, I would say that it could prepare you for both. If you are looking to maybe be an adjunct professor or faculty, then the doctoral program would be a really good fit because it is, a higher level degree where you are doing a fair amount of research. And in order to teach, you do have to have a doctoral degree or a master's, typically a doctoral. But as far as formulation and botany, there is definitely a lot of chemistry involved in that program. However, you need to make sure you're getting the hands-on, and that's something that you might have to seek out on your own, right? Through like doing job shadow or finding an internship. Our programs do not have built-in internships necessarily, where you're going to get a lot of that hands-on component. But I think to answer your question, the doctoral program could be a fit for both pathways. And I would have to know a little bit more about your goals, but yeah. And I might have missed your other question, Monica. If you want to put that in the chat again, if I missed something else, I'd be happy to answer that for you. Let's see. Um, I'm just making sure I didn't miss anything else. Yeah, so to talk about YouTube and misinformation and all of that, I mean, there's really not a whole lot we can do. People are going to, use their platforms, social media to talk about their passion around aromatherapy, herbal medicine, wellness. And we all know that some of it's really great and helpful, and some of it can be harmful, right? But that we can't change that. I mean, people are going to be doing this. This is just where we're at. And all of you here, you're all getting a formal education, right? So you're going to understand the research. You're going to have evidence-based, sometimes even clinical um, knowledge that other people don't. And I think where that differs and where you can have a unique value proposition is really sharing the education, the research, the clinical evidence-based information, and really, dismantling a lot of the trends or the fads that might be a little more harmful, right? So I think it's also about networking. It's about working with other professionals who are going to, bring you into their practices and getting credentialed is definitely part of that, but also, working with other professionals that are credentialed already and that, have that built-in trust with their clients and their patients. Um, and then if you're going out on your own, it's going to be really important that you share with your audience how you're credentialed and share with them, where you get your information but it's a tough question because YouTube, to Ashley's point, can be really helpful. There can be some good information on there. You could even use YouTube yourself for marketing purposes, right? So it's a big question, but I think education is important and being able to speak to what makes you an expert in the field. What about Herbalists Without Borders? Yeah, I wish I knew more about Herbalists Without Borders. I definitely know they have an internship program. I don't know a lot about it. If you are somebody who wants to work abroad, I think you should definitely look into Herbalists Without Borders. They have some great programs, and I do believe they have an internship as well. Um, and then Monica, you said, how can you best capture elective opportunities to specialize versus dual and multiple degrees? Yeah, that's a great question. So, depending on what program you're in, so let's say if you're in the Bachelor of Science in Integrative Health Sciences or the Master's in Science in Integrative Health Sciences or even the doctoral program, you can specialize by picking a track. So, if you want to specialize in herbal medicine, you would, let your advisor know that that's your specialty, and then those elective courses would be around herbal medicine. I don't know about the dual. That might be that you have to take two separate programs. I'm not quite sure about that. You'd want to ask your advisor. But you can absolutely specialize in those programs. And then wondering about post-grad job opportunity support. Well, that's me. I'm here to help you with the post-grad job opportunity support. So I help students with their resume, cover letter, finding job opportunities, doing market research, career services. That's what we're here for. Like I mentioned, the mentorship program is definitely an option for entrepreneurs or those wanting to really like work with a peer. Um, and yeah, we can definitely look at remote work. Again, if you live in a rural area or a small town and you don't have a lot of opportunity near you, remote work might be the only option that you have. So we would definitely look into that if that's an interest of yours. These are great questions. Thank you so much. I'm trying to get to them all. I hope I'm answering them. If you're still feeling, confused about something, please put it in there and I'll do my best to answer it. Thank you all for being so active in here. Okay. So fitness. I don't know if anyone here, I haven't seen fitness come up yet. I don't know if anyone here is interested in this. I am not sure if a lot of people know this, but an elective course here with ACHS, PFT 101, it does set you up for the NASM exam to become a personal trainer. So if you are interested in that career pathway and that credentialing pathway, that is something you should definitely talk to your advisor about adding in. This is a extremely growing field. Gyms, healthcare facilities, Um, Care homes, um, these are all, definitely getting more and more popular year after year. And again, going back to what we were saying about corporate wellness, a lot of employers are actually offering free gym memberships and things of that nature. So it's looking like a 12% increase based on the Bureau of Labor Statistics in the next 10 years, which is great. Also, when it comes to employability and having opportunities for positions, it is probably outside of, or in conjunction with wellness coaching, probably one of the highest opportunities for finding employment. So, something to think about. It's not for everyone. It's not where everyone wants to go. But again, you could use your skills in multiple ways. So, and if you're somebody who's wanting to be an herbal medicine professional, a nutrition professional, or health coach, you could look at partnering with some of these facilities and working within those facilities. And that's a built-in referral network, right? So, gyms and fitness centers, yoga centers, studios, corporate wellness programs, which we talked about, mobile personal training, so going to people's homes, and definitely entrepreneurial occupations as well. And let's see here if anyone has any questions about fitness. I love the conversation going on in here. Awesome. Cool. Well, we won't spend a lot of time here since I think most of us here are probably not looking into fitness specifically, but this is just good information to know. And then lastly, aromatherapy. I've seen a couple of people talk about aromatherapy so far in the chat, but aromatherapy, I like to think of that as kind of two different tracks, right? Like kind of an adjunct to complementary alternative medicine. So, definitely if you're somebody who's like a massage therapist or a wellness coach, if you work in an apothecary, this is something that you can add into your services. And then there's also the clinical track, right? So this is more like if you are looking for more of a clinical, kind of working in more of a functional medicine clinic, doing more of the research side of things, then there's that track. That's more of the master's or doctoral level track. But yeah, so if you are interested in getting credentialed, again, it doesn't change your scope of practice, but it really is an amazing um, kind of credentialing for, I guess, reputation and building trust with your clients, and also having access to up-to-date research, networking. But the National Alliance for Holistic Aromatherapy, or AIA, which is Aromatherapy International, um, those are two wonderful credentialing pathways. You can start as a student and work your way into different levels. Um, and they're both great institutions. So I would definitely encourage you to look into that. And then if you are looking more at the clinical side, um, I'm sure if you are interested in aromatherapy, you've heard of ARC, the Aromatherapy Registration Council, and you can take the exam with them to become a registered aromatherapist. And if you have any questions about that pathway, you could, schedule time with me or look at the ARC website. Um, they have a catalog on there that goes over everything you need to know, including the testing dates. So, some of the pathways would be, like I was saying, adjuncts to an existing complementary alternative medicine track, aromatherapy consulting, educating, e-commerce business. So having an online business through like Shopify. And that could really be for any of the other things we talked about too, that are products based. Distilling, working in farm and agriculture. The first thing that comes to mind is like this wonderful lavender farm that I live next to. And in the summer, it's just so phenomenal. And they do all their bottling and distilling there. It's my favorite place on earth. Product design, formulation, quality control, working in the retail space. And then, like we were talking about, clinical aromatherapy. Are any of you interested in any of these pathways? I'm just curious with those of you that are interested in aromatherapy. Distilling is fun. I've seen it. I've never done it, but I've definitely seen the distilling process. It's really cool. Oh, awesome, Andrea. I'd love to learn more about that. Um, and what salary ranges are you seeing across program offerings? Ooh, that's a great question. It really depends. It really depends. And again, it kind of matters, you know, where you live and, your level of education, your experience, if it's entry level or if you're going into more of a like program director position. I mean, I've seen, entry level looking at $15 an hour for, maybe being a receptionist at a integrative health clinic all the way to, just like high level um director positions where you're at, 150,000, 200,000 a year. So it's a really hard question to answer just because there's so many factors that go into that. Monica, if you have a specific career that you're thinking of, I could be a little more specific maybe if you want to put that in the chat. And then Evelyn said, I would love to get certified in aromatherapy and better utilize an herbal approach. Hot topic. Apart from American Herbalist Guild, are there organizations herbalists should be a part of? I currently do not have enough clinical hours, but think it would be great. Yeah, that's a really good question. Herbalists Without Borders, American Herbalist Guild. Um, Those are the two I know of the most. I would say also keep an eye out for different events coming to your town or towns near you. Because I do find a lot of events in herbal medicine. There is a website called Herb Rally. I don't remember the actual URL, but it's Herb Rally, and they have a lot of online events and then state-specific events. So that might be something cool for you to look into. Um, American Botanical Council, thank you, Carrie Ann. That's the one I could not think of, is a great one. They do some amazing work. And then if you just Google events like herbal medicine events, there's one in Wisconsin, and I'm blanking on the name of it, but it's really popular. But anytime you can get involved in any events that are herbal medicine specific, then you can meet other practitioners and potentially ask them if you could, do some of your clinical hours within their institution or their practice. Oh, you're in Wisconsin. I'll have to get that for you. I'll email it to you. I'm blanking on the name of it, but it comes around every year and it's awesome. And a lot of people attend. Um, United Plant Savers. Yeah, I've heard of that one too. But that's a great question. Let me think on that. And then I'll definitely email you. Okay. So just as we wrap up here, I think it's really important to think about, different modalities, to think about different career pathways, to think about, what are the jobs out there. But then I think it's also really, really important to know what are employers looking for? What should be on your resume and your cover letter? What are some of those, core employability skills that you really want to go into the job market with? And so here's a list: motivational interviewing, active listening, empathy. Oh, active listening is on here twice. Oops. Again, I hadn't had enough coffee this morning. So empathy, trauma-informed care, emotional intelligence. Obviously, that's more toward like the health coaching realm. Confidentiality and discretion, cultural competence. Soap notes and documentation, that's a really big one. So that's something I definitely encourage you, if you're an entrepreneur, also making sure that you have intake forms, um, making sure you have proper disclaimers. That's all very important. Technology is a really big one, especially with AI. And I know AI is another really hot topic. Um, but AI is here, whether you love it or you don't love it. It is here. Employers are using it. There are responsible ways to use it. And so knowing how to integrate AI and knowing about it is really important. Um, and then of course things like Google Suite, managing spreadsheets. using, presentation software like I'm using today. Basic business marketing and sales skills, communication, customer service. And I think it's really important. Like I'll put a huge highlight around adaptability, flexibility, continuing to learn and adapt to new systems. With technology, things are just constantly moving. We're in a job market that's changing rapidly. So being able to be adaptive is really important. And then, of course, scope of practice, which we've talked about. Okay. Great. So, real quick, we talked about some credentialing pathways. I did not put American Herbalist Guild or NAHA or AIA on here, but please look those up if you are an aromatherapy or herbal medicine practitioner and let me know if you need help figuring out that pathway. But the NAMP, I did want to speak about that just because so many of our programs do lead to this track. We had talked about earlier, you know, setting up your program with an emphasis or specialization. Please keep in mind if you are going toward an integrative health sciences or a program where you do build in your own specialization, if you want to go toward the BCHN or any of the NANP credentialing pathways, you want to make sure that you're taking all of those classes as holistic nutrition classes. If you take herbal medicine and then you go to take this exam for the board certification of holistic nutrition, you will not be prepared and you will not be successful. So just make sure you work with your advisors so that way, if you are wanting to get credentialed with the BCHN or the certified nutrition professional, that you are taking the proper classes in your program. It can be a little confusing, so just want to throw that out there. This exam study guide is amazing. It goes over all of the costs, what you need to apply, how you get your hours. There are 500 hours that you would have to obtain, 250 contact and 250 non-contact. So it's all there. And then we talked about the American Nutrition Association CNS pathway. That program is just the Master of Science in Holistic Nutrition. There's 1,000 supervised hours that are required within that program and an exam. So let me know if you need any help kind of figuring out your scope of practice within your state and then how that credentialing pathway would work. Chess is definitely an interesting pathway. You do have to have a bachelor's degree. Chess is something, if you're wanting to be more in the health education space, that's a really great credential to have. You can learn more at that link there that I provided. And then, as I was talking about before, the NBHWC is an incredibly important credential to have right now. So if you are wanting to be a health coach and you're not able to take the graduate certificate of wellness coaching with us, I would highly recommend that you look into another program to get that credential. It's very important and it will open up so many more opportunities for you. And not just that, but you really learn how to coach appropriately. Coaching is definitely an art form and it takes a certain amount of practice. Consulting is a much different, right? Consulting is more education, whereas coaching is really, there's some fundamentals that you really need to learn. So that's it. That is the presentation today. And I really appreciate all of your comments and questions and conversation. Is there any other questions that any of you have as we wrap up here? Here's the link to my online calendar if you want to schedule a time. Evelyn, interested in health coaching, with herbal medicine. Wanted to say a big thank you to the whole staff. Oh, thank you, Evelyn. That's so kind. And I'm so glad that you're here. And I would love to help you with anything that might be helpful. Thank you all for being here. And yes, Marie, this will be emailed to you. So by the end of the day, you should get this via email. And thank you all again. Have a wonderful new year. Have a wonderful rest of your day. And I hope to talk to you all soon. Bye.